What are some ways bases we can use to segment? Bases are the systems we can use to cut up our market into presumably more manageable pieces. So in this section, we're going to take a little bit of a tour on some of our more common bases, ways we segment, that is, cut and group our markets. So here are some of the major bases we use: geography, demographics, behavioral dimensions, and psychographics. Most firms use more than one type. Remember, we are going for ruthlessly specific segments that help us better target that market. On a quick note, geographic and demographic are the most common because they provide organizational focus. After all, when we say we are serving teens, we're not aiming to serve every teen in the world. It's usually teens within the LA area or entrepreneur-directed accounting firms within Southern California. So geographic dimensions are often used for segmentation. Sometimes they may have very real differences in needs, such as language or weather. More often, we use this as a way to put boundaries on our marketing activities. Who are we more likely to actually serve? May not want to roll out delivery for all regions after all. As noted, sometimes a geographic base is used due to the nature of the product. So most local donut shops or dry cleaners just serve their immediate neighborhood. They don't anticipate a great deal of out-of-town business. Many firms also tend to focus on a particular region like Southern California or Los Angeles because the resources they have makes it easier to focus on those customers. For example, if you are a local shop, you don't likely need to advertise in New York because no one in New York is likely to patronize you, or at least not a large enough number that's worth advertising there. You may have other reasons, such as regulations. Free trade zones usually aim to make a certain set of countries into one region in terms of economic regulations. You may pick a region based on its infrastructure or natural environment, such as how Nicaragua prides itself on generating its own electricity through hydroelectric dams, geothermal plants, and wind farms. So if you're in that business, you may want to pay attention to them. Here are two other examples. Your local Walmart does not likely sell many snowblowers if you live in Southern California. If you live in the Midwest or the Northeast, you probably have plenty of options instead. Another is the prototypical Kinder eggs are illegal in the U.S. due to the choking hazard issue. Kinder Egg underwent product development for the type of treat and toys they offer. So rather than the toy and the chocolate egg for the American market, they now split it. They are marketed as Kinder Joy eggs. So in sum, the geographic base gives us dimensions that may sometimes be focal, but are normally used for more focusing purposes instead of just narrowing things down, not the key thing. After all, when you are selling to women, you're not likely selling to every single woman in the whole world. We often use demographic dimensions to segment our behavior. These vital statistics often relate to buyer behavior. People with similar traits often share certain experiences or social conditions, and so may share certain needs, wants, values, and desires. From the past chapter, demographics are the vital statistics like age, date of birth, sex, ethnicity, years of education. In essence, those things you bubble in on your census form. Or those that surveys tend to ask you that you boom, 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 boom real fast. So here's some examples. Income. A marketing mix may appeal most to families with a particular income. It may be a matter that they literally can or cannot afford it. Then again, their income may be useful because below or above a certain point, they may become more likely to buy your product. Sex and gender. Keep in mind that sex is usually the biological characteristics, while gender is actually how they identify with their femininity, masculinity, or whatever mix suits them as a person. Keep in mind that this one especially becomes fraught because marketers can get lazy in terms of needs. In what's often called pink and shrink, marketers may do just that, paint the product pink and make it smaller. This may not actually cater to the needs of these customers. The NFL is an example of a firm that has actually improved its outreach to its female fans, such as providing shirts that may actually fit or cut the way they like, not just having a regular shirt and it's just pink. Age. We talked about earlier how sometimes we often have to talk about generational cohort to get a better sense of what that person may actually need or be interested in, but other things such as potential income, motivations, or needs may still be better tagged and targeted through age. Family size or family life cycle. Covered in the consumer behavior chapter, we again talked about how these tend to correlate with particular needs, decision-making styles, and lifestyles. So the book often uses this discussing how certain households may differ in what types of to-go or convenience food they buy. Occupation or education and social class can also be used to segment because they all tend to correlate with different types of experiences, needs, and motivations. You may, for example, need to alter the mix for how the group tends to do their research or who they tend to turn to for advice. But again, what are major limitations for demographics? Well, segmenting based on demographics is very useful for focusing your target market, but they are not to be used as replacements for other types of traits such as use, motivation, lifestyle, and so on. If you took any two 16-year-old males living in an apartment with two parents, their needs would be similar in a way, but yet it does not address his goals. What is he interested in, say video games, soccer, volunteering, where he is living. So apartments come in all types and all types of regions and so on. So in sum, demographic dimensions are very important tools for segments and can be linked to specific types of behavior or needs. But as with any dimensions, they're to be used with a purpose. So this video explains the limits of limiting ourselves to demographics for segmenting customers and how modern research techniques are giving us better data. So an important part of segmentation is that you need to make sure it's actually useful. I cannot reinforce this enough. The demographic variables may be associated with certain traits, but you must remember those other focal traits, or you may dilute your target market or muddle it. For example, a firm may decide to segment their runners' earbuds, headphones for men and women. The earbuds for women are smaller, with the thought that the average woman is smaller than a man. However, this may leave out men who now either use someone else or have to go searching for your product because they happen to have smaller ears, but still like to have earbuds while running. This can get even more complicated depending on how the retailer organizes their products. How many of you have been to a sporting goods store? Or perhaps just a general goods store like Walmart or something? Sometimes you guys know that it can be pretty hard to find things because they try to help you by clustering like items together. But sometimes it may not make sense for the person. For example, I was trying to find a gift for my friends who are runners, and they had things divided in like 8 different places, depending on gender and intensity of the run. So if you don't fit into their categories, you're out of luck. So effectively, it may make more sense to use another method such as size versus gender. Segmentation strategies to ensure you achieve the best results you can. May not be bad if it's actually shaped different for women. Not useful if it's literally the only way you can get a smaller size earphone is it says women on it. You might miss on sales. Here's an example where the Dollar Shave Club played off the usual way firms market their products. This let them better convey their message because they play with our expectations. This means more people might actually notice their ad and thus their brand. In sum, demographics or any of the bases are to be used with great care. Make sure they are actually useful to your organization. So behavioral segmentation. Here is a selection for just a quick overview. So behavior, we often segment in terms of needs. So customer needs can be economic, functional, or psychological. For example, as a tax preparation firm, you may specialize in particular types of organizations, or you might specialize in a customer that's complex multinational issues. Benefits related to that. For example, a car buyer should be looking for good gas mileage or the ability to seat 7 people. Think about how shampoos or cold medicines tell us what they can be used for on their labels. Lots of ways that you can appeal by benefits that they know to seek. Thoughts. Buyers may be grouped by whether they have favorable or unfavorable attitudes or beliefs about the brand or product category. You can imagine how one film trailer may aim toward the super fans for the franchise, so they know all the lines from the last film. Others may aim for more casual action goers and perhaps create some new fans. Basically, people who just want a good popcorn flick. Another example in thoughts, maybe you have skeptics versus highly loyal fans where you can do no wrong. Related to this is actual rate of use. So some customers may be heavy, medium, light, or even non-users. A simple example is how milk and other products tend to come in different sizes. Another example is how you can see what firms do when they want to reward their heavy users by offering loyalty or reward systems. Similar to that, purchase relationship. Customers could be segmented on whether they have an ongoing relationship, intermittent use, or a bad relationship, say the one who only comes when there's a sale, versus, say, the loyal buyers who will tell their friends. Brand familiarity might vary from insisting on a brand to non-recognition or rejection. A golden ideal is that a person finds the brand so unsubstitutable that they don't see it on the shelf, they just walk right back out and wait for you to come next time. Some might segment based on shopping. It refers to whether buyers do comparison shopping or perhaps buy on a convenience basis. We might segment based on problem-solving approaches. So some buyers go straight to sources like Consumer Reports or to a well-read friend. Others go to the store. Others just don't think. Information needs. Some customers want a lot of information. Others need little. Some buyers may want to see lots of information on the packaging or at the store. Others may already be very knowledgeable before they even show up. So these are not the only ones, of course. Any type of behavior may be useful when segmenting a market. Just depends on your particular product and target market for what applies. So some words for visual learners. Usage rate is based on how customers use it or type of use they do. Sometimes can be cyclical. Consider how Netflix has settings or options for a person who wants to binge watch, where they watch a particular series or genre in one sitting. You can better tailor your product to this. You'll often see rewards cards as a tool they use to more easily figure out what type of customer you are. Sometimes it comes instead in the form of a more customized product or product instructions that assumes heavier use or greater experience. And again, big one example is also benefits. Benefit segmentation is where the benefit is up front and center. For something like shampoo, some are meant to help thicken your hair. Others prepare effectively for dandruff, that they'll give you dandruff control. Some, you just want it as caustic and clean as possible. Lots of different ideas. And so here's a selection of major bases you can use to service organizations. As always, each are meant to help you better tailor a mix to them. You can imagine in your own organizations, whether as buyer or seller, there are lots of different ways you can do this. So type of customer, demographics or geographics, how customers use the product, type of buying situation, purchasing methods, and kind of relationship. So here's an example. Let's take a software company that builds internal content management systems and dashboards for organizations and offers subscriptions for technical support. They may segment based on size of the organization, so what types of buying centers or contacts they're likely to interact with, and the technical proficiency of the organization. So you may have tech companies that'll order specific modifications of the systems. I want so-and-so option. Meanwhile, a second segment may be the less tech-savvy companies, which will be, or rather they'll need more extensive support along the lines of, something broke. We need you to fix it. Help, now, please. So these segments may get different types of newsletter or other information as well, alongside, say, the different types of support they'll get. Psychographics. This is our next base. These refer to subjective needs, motivations, lifestyles, and effectively the geodemographics of customers. It's a very important base because these are what usually actually drive your customer and are usually what we try to infer when we use bases like demographics. So here's an example of how motivations and playstyle mattered for how Magic made cards and rules. They noticed 3 types of players. So Timmy or Tammy is a power gamer, wants to have fun. So being with friends, winning a good hand, enjoyable, dominate. They want to not just eke out a victory, they want to be victorious. They want to experience something. Next, Magic said, hey, another is Johnny or Jenny. They're a self-expression gamer. They want to win with style. They want to play on his or her terms, explore uncharted territory. Effectively, they want to express something. And finally, the last type of player they notice is Spike. Their person is a tournament player. They play to win. They want to see what they're capable of. They'll optimize and pay to play the best deck. So they play to prove something. So this allowed Magic and their parent company to make more customized decks or make sure the types of cards that balance the needs of different play styles. So VALS is a systematic classification that focuses on self-concept, and it's very useful to the way the mind can influence behavior. And it aims for a combination for more robust psychological characteristics like motivation and personality. And so it's very strong because it looks at more enduring characteristics that correlate with purchase patterns, but as always, there's cons where there are estimates, and there's always a lot of influences that may be active for any one customer or situation. You also have to have different ones for particular segments, such as how this button will take you to the US version, and there are other ones. So if you like, you are free to take the quiz and see what it's like. PRIZM is our next tool. It's a handy tool that gives you the dominant types of lifestyle segments according to zip code. These can be useful as a starting point as you figure out how they work with the segments you aim for. So PRIZM is written by Nielsen and Clarita, and it's effectively a database. And of course, they would like to serve you up your own customized segments, but this is their free sample. So this is how it works. It works on 2 big ideas. Effectively, it works on the idea that lifestyles exist, that certain consumption traits tend to co-occur together. So this means that attitudes, activities and interests, demographics, media patterns, usage rates. Those types of things tend to cluster in certain ways. For example, a young adult is more likely to have grown up with the internet and digital technology as a constant presence. They are more likely to consume a wider variety of digital media. Knowing one type of digital media makes it easier to use others in terms of skills and acceptance for using technology. Next, another big idea for why we think, or not why we think, but why PRIZM, or how PRIZM operates is lifestyles tend to live together, tend to cluster. So for many, you can think of people who have school-aged children and are very family and achievement oriented. They all tend to live where there are lots of resources like parks, schools, and after-school classes. They may also tend to share their interests and learn from each other, which further cements these lifestyles, having a particular set of activities, attitudes, and traits. And you can imagine they'll continue by saying, hey, we want more playgrounds. And so it keeps reinforcing what groups are there. So why might this be useful? Well, you can think of how PRIZM might help you with your marketing mix. Very useful. You need to know what types of customer segments are likely around based on geographic location. For example, where to locate a store, or what type of promotional campaigns to use. Some B2B organizations might find this useful if they serve organizations that locate near their end users such as schools or hairdressers. This also is good at learning what types of traits tend to go together. We may know what we tend to like or do, but it does not mean we know what the average may likely be. This is the first step to envisioning how a certain trait may co-occur with others. But there are drawbacks to using PRIZM and psychographics. First, they only give you likely segments, not who one specifically will be a part of. Just because the area is dominated by young digerati does not mean a particular young person is part of that and is tech savvy. Next, doesn't actually say what will be the guiding factors a customer will use. Just because the customer is likely to be part of a group does not mean they're always guided by that lifestyle. They may have very strong risk aversion or are very cash poor. So they could not or would not consume even if you begged. Another idea is zip codes. This limitation is because it's based on census data. Properties within the area change. It may not always map onto a zip code. There's also plenty of diversity within zip codes too. And finally, a drawback is B2B distribution. Sometimes organizational customers tend to be geographically clustered for reasons other than their customers' locations. So you may have to find other means, such as finding them through trade shows, professional associations, and chamber of commerce. So I encourage you to take a look and take a click and try out your zip code and see who's around and what they do. How do they describe segments? And think. Here are some questions you can answer. Where might I want to locate a new spa service for men concept? Where might I want to ensure the digital banner ads run? How might a particular area change in 10 years? And more. So try at least one of these. I invite you to do both if you have a chance. Try the VALS survey. Try the PRIZM site. VALS deals in how your self-concept, your sense of who you are, and how you achieve it influences what type of consumer you are. PRIZM focuses on geodemographics and lifestyle, where customers with like needs, interests, and resources tend to be found near each other. A last note on segmentation. It's important to make sure you are clear on what you mean, how consumers consider it, and how it fits into their larger lifestyles and value sets. Here are 2 videos that show how you can invoke similar values or symbols, but that they can still end up advancing widely different visions of the world that may appeal to different segments. Go ahead and take a look at them. Perhaps you remember them and your own initial thoughts. So the first time I saw the Cadillac version, the poolside, I was watching the Sochi Winter Olympics with my husband's family. Some audience members were like, darn straight, while some audience members were like, not very riveting. The Ford commercial came a few days later in response. I would say all of us sitting on that living room sofa that first day were pretty similar. All American born and raised. All would say we believed in freedom, hard work, and a greater America. Both cars are aimed at fulfilling our sense of accomplishment while letting us continue to achieve our best. Yet, there were split reviews. Notice how even segmenting us on those traits alone may still have obscured differences. A simple survey that asks what we think of hard work or America may not mean the same thing to each person. So herein lies the power of knowing your customer very well. So in sum, segmentation is an art. We use segmentation as tools, but the tools are only as good as the thought we put in them. It is up to you to make sure the segmentation tools work for your company and your marketing strategies. So here's an activity. Go ahead and pick a product. Consider the different types of people who use it, the different ways it is used, and in other words, think in terms of those customer needs. So there's often differences between people, within a group, and even among a single person. So go ahead, try it out. And how would you use each base for that product? Think of ways we could use each segmentation base. Which ones may make sense to overlap or combine? Which ones are probably irrelevant? Well, I hope with that, I'll leave you to your activity and encourage you to maybe try this with your own product if you haven't already done so. And with that, this is your instructor encouraging you to run with these ideas.